It's January 25th, 2021. I'm Todd Dunn, and today I am out and about in Southwest Harbor, Maine. I'm just going to do a little walk around one of the residential areas in town. Right now, I'm starting out near the end of Clark Point Road and heading back toward town. And the plan is to walk up a street called Dirigo Street to High Street, down High Street, back to Clark Point Road, and then out Clark Point Road to the starting point. It's a relatively easy walk, and I chose to do this today because we did have a little snow in the last few days, and the trails in the woods are still a little snowy, and because the snow has been melting a little bit, they're a little icy. So I wanted to stay off them, and this route has sidewalk for most of its length. So we're just going to walk up here about 100 yards until we get to Dirigo Road. And as you can see, there's the harbor. That's looking south, pretty much straight into the sun right now at about 1 p.m. So we'll head out for our little walk. Well, that's where I've come from. You can see houses here. This is Dirigo Street. It goes up here a couple hundred yards to High Street. This area is a mix of private homes and inns or bed and breakfasts. This house here, for example, has been an inn as long as I've been here. They've taken their sign down for the winter. Probably means that it changed hands recently. And on the other side, we've got the harbor only visible through the trees. So let's head up Dirigo and see what it looks like on the way up to High Street. This is just kind of a connector. It's not as developed as either High Street or Clark Point Road. Closer view of this old captain's house. Now the homes here on Dirigo are a mix of summer homes and year-round residents, and most of the summer homes are probably closed up for the winter right now. So we'll continue up here for another couple hundred yards till we get to High Street. You can see some of the homes are pretty grand, and others not so much. Although that one there is a new home, was only built about 2 years ago. Now here's something fairly typical of the right-hand side of Dirigo as we head away from the harbor. You can see the fence marking the beginning of a property, and this is quite a deep property, I believe. See, the road goes back there a ways, and right down at the end you can see water. So this is the access to a waterfront cottage, and most of the waterfront cottages on that part of the harbor are pretty grand. No, the houses on the other side are not quite so grand, but still comfortable and nice. And as I said, many of them are summer homes. This one appears to be one, which is closed up for the winter. Now there will be a caretaker that checks in on it now and then, but other than that, it's probably pretty much empty. And here's some stone gate markers for the access to another waterfront estate. You can see the driveway goes back there quite a ways. Now the houses in this area, some of them are pretty old. They've been re-sided and fixed up, but a fair number of these houses are 150 years old or more, dating back into the 1830s to 1850s. And of course there are some much newer homes. One of the things that's interesting about this area is that on the right hand side of Dirigo here, if you go down these lanes very far, you'll often discover that the water mains are just plastic pipes on the surface of the ground. And that indicates that many of these waterfront estates and the properties near them do not have year-round water, because obviously since it gets quite cold here in the winter, they shut the surface water lines off for the winter. And here's another older home, quite large, and looks to be a summer home since all the windows are covered up. And another smaller home next door, also pretty obviously closed up for the winter. And here we come to High Street. You can hear the wind up above me. It's not too bad down here though. And we are going to make a left here and head down High Street to Clark Point Road. Here is something you have to pay attention to when you're walking on the roads here in this part of Maine. These blue street signs indicate that these streets are private roads, whereas the green street sign here for Dirigo indicates that it's a public street. As we continue down, I think I'll move over and walk on the sidewalk. This is a boat shed here that until about 2 years ago had a large Hinkley sailing yacht in it, and it just sat there for years and years, and it finally disappeared about 2 years ago. And as we continue down the hill, High Street is one of the more pleasant residential streets in Southwest Harbor. It's different than a lot of the others because the lots are fairly large up here. When you get down to Clark Point Road, where we'll be in a little bit, you will see that the lots are much smaller. There are some very nice homes up here. There's a church with its steeple and bell in the steeple. And just homes. And if you look out, you can see that some of these homes have a view of the water through the trees. The view is better this time of year with no leaves on the deciduous trees than it is in summer when the trees are all leafed out. As you can see, this street is lined with deciduous trees. And some of the yards here are pretty big. Small houses, but big yards. Whereas in other parts of town, in the old part of town, the houses are very close together, as we'll see in a bit when we get down to Clark Point Road. Here is a feature that's fairly common on Mount Desert Island, and that is an old small cemetery. This particular one says it was the first public cemetery on Mount Desert Island, which means that it probably dates back quite a long time, maybe even into the late 1700s. And as you can see, the stones have been moved around by frost heave, knocked over, stood back up again. Here, for example, is one of the newer stones for someone who died in 1910. And next to it is a stone. Unfortunately, the death date is chipped off, but the person is the date of birth. So that's pretty normal for this area. And you can see the old cemetery here. Usually these cemeteries are maintained by the towns that they are in. Well, we're getting close to Clark Point Road. A few more homes. Here, as you can see, these aren't grand homes, but they're nice homes. And they're on good sized lots and are well spaced out. Oh my gosh, traffic. And straight ahead, the large White House has been an inn in some years and a private home in others, as it's changed hands several times over the 22 years that I've been here. Well, here we are at the intersection of High Street, which we're on right now, and Clark Point Road and Herrick Way. So if you continue in the direction the camera's facing now, you'll be in downtown Southwest Harbor in about 2 blocks. This way, on Clark Point Road, we will go out toward the end of Clark Point, and at the end of Clark Point is the Coast Guard, and it's located on what used to be the steamship dock for Southwest Harbor, until the land was sold to the U.S. government to establish the Coast Guard base. Here is a little side street that goes right down to the water with small homes on it. Now, most of the homes on the water side of Clark Point Road, as we head out toward Clark Point, which is the right-hand side, are summer homes. There are a few that are year-round, but not very many. And although these houses don't look particularly grand, any of them that actually have waterfront, which most of them do, will have a price tag well over $1 million. So this is one of the high rent districts here in Southwest Harbor, Maine. And the other side of the street, the homes are much less grand. They may or may not be able to see the water, but even these houses are probably selling for $400,000 or more. So there's the water there. So you're looking at some pretty expensive real estate here. Here we are looking kind of southeast across the harbor. You can see the docks that are there. There are some quite elaborate ones. This, many years ago, was a commercial area with a lot of fishing docks and that sort of thing. And one of the reasons these homes are not year-round homes in most cases is that Southwest Harbor has the highest property taxes on Mount Desert Island. And these homes have fairly substantial annual property tax levies. For example, this little shingled home right here was for sale a few years ago, and I looked at the listing and they were asking about $1.6 million for it. It's bigger than it looks. It does have waterfront, but at the property tax rates here, you'd be looking at about a $25,000 a year property tax bill for that home. Further up here, we've got more similar homes, and you'll notice the houses, particularly along the water, are very close together. And these lots aren't very deep. The water is not far past the homes. On the other side of the street, the lots are spaced out a little bit more, and the homes have a little more room. Now, this home here, when I came here, belonged to the well-known Maine wooden boat builder Ralph Stanley. And down behind the house, although you can't see it from here very much, there are several boat sheds. You can see one right there, and there are also marine railways from those boat sheds down into the water. And Ralph put this house up for sale when it sat on the market for quite a few years, largely because it was going to be a big project if anybody wanted to open up the view from the house over the water by tearing down all the boat sheds, which they have not done. Okay, and right up here we have access to one of Southwest Harbor's 3 town docks. And the only hint that the town dock is here is that little sign on that fence that says ferry. We'll walk down there. Well, here is the town dock. This is the most sheltered part of Southwest Harbor, and they do leave the town dock floats in here all year. And further out, you can see some of the lobster boat fleet that stays in the water all year here in Southwest Harbor. Okay, let's head back to Clark Point Road and continue. Over there, the gray shingled house with the light green trim, that's the backside of Ralph Stanley's former home, and here's one of his boat sheds. There's another one on the other side of that, and then another one right down by the water. And does not look like they're being used for anything right now. And there is Clark Point Road just up ahead. Well, we're getting back to the intersection of Clark Point Road and Dirigo. This is another inn here, closed up for the winter. And more homes. And at this point, the sidewalk disappears on the side I'm walking on and moves to the other side of the road. You can see the water over there. And right here is access to one of the town's lobster docks. And for the last 2 years, there has also been a seafood restaurant there, and you can see what they tend to carry. A lobster dock is a dock where the lobster fishermen sell their lobsters, buy their bait, and in many cases they can also buy fuel. I don't know if this dock down here sells fuel. And here we come, pretty much back to the starting point. That yellow house over there is on Dirigo. So when we get back to the intersection, I'll end this video. Okay, here we are at the intersection of Dirigo and Clark Point Road. There's Dirigo where we walked up, and this is Clark Point Road. Clark Point Road continues out about 200 yards from here, goes into a commercial area where Hamilton Marine's marine store here in Southwest Harbor is located. And right at the end of Clark Point Road is the Coast Guard base for Southwest Harbor. And just before you get to the Coast Guard base, on the water is Beals, which is also a lobster dock that definitely sells fuel in addition to buying lobsters and selling bait, and has a seafood restaurant that specializes in, big surprise, lobster. And just before you get to Beals is what's called the Lower Town Dock, the second of the 3 public accesses to the water here on Southwest Harbor. The only other public access to the water is on the other side of the harbor, and that is the Manset Town Dock, which I've shown you a number of times in the past. So here we are, looking at the harbor through the trees. Anyway, that's just about the end of my walk. I'm only about 50 yards from where I parked, so I'll say thanks for coming along with me. Hope you enjoyed the walk and seeing a little bit of the older part of Southwest Harbor, Maine. Thanks for watching.